Welcome to the Better Rider Podcast. I'm Jimmy Lewis, and this is
Jorge Jestes.
And George is one of our longtime coaches. He has a really interesting story about how he came around and I would say clinged on. He's now, how long have you been coaching with us?
You know, I don't even know. I really don't. Because I was talking to Jimmy Tyler just the other day, and he said he crashed 2 years ago. And I know I was well into this before he crashed.
Yeah,
so it made me kind of start to think about it. 4
or 5 years. But
yeah, I think at least.
So you have a background in motorcycling. You were a professional motorcycle rider in certain instances.
Yeah, unlike you, I'm still getting paid for motorcycle riding.
Oh, I still get paid.
I rode a motorcycle and got paid for it for a while in my career, and you may have seen me in your rearview mirror at times. But I started as a kid on little kid on the little mini bikes with the pull start motor, and then kind of moved on from there. My first dirt bike was a Yamaha 360 that I still own, and then I progressed kind of more into the street side, went away from dirt. Never really competed or came from a racing background. And then,
but you do have a police and fire national championship.
Oh, a gold medal. Yeah, it's much better than these little ISDE things back here. But yeah, I won that just a few years ago. Unlike the ISD medals too, my class only had one rider in it. So, but I did gold medal, and it's nice. I'll wear it on one of the shows.
So what we're doing here with these episodes of the Better Rider Podcast is introducing you to some of our coaches. As you can tell, we don't take ourselves, or at least George and I don't take ourselves too serious. But we're going to kind of get into some things that'll hopefully help you become a little bit of a better rider, teach you a little bit about our coaches. So you can see we have a pretty diverse coaching staff that comes from a wide-ranging background. And so when you are training with us, or you're listening to us or watching us, depending on how you're getting this medium, you can hopefully learn something and have a good time picking up on some motorcycle tips.
So back to kind of how I fell into it. When I rode as an officer, we trained, we had updates annually and everything like that. And with a lot of things in those kind of industries, we talk about it as perishable skills. Whether it's shooting, motorcycle riding, or anything. So you get complacent with yourself. You think you're doing good, but you need some third party really to kind of look at you and help you make adjustments and tweak. So that's why this class first attracted me. I came with some buddies. We went to it. The skills seemed so basic, but yet hard to turn into reactionary, learn.
You're saying that you probably weren't expecting a whole lot the first time you came to the class.
No, it wasn't so much that. I mean, I didn't really know who you were. I knew about some of the events, you'd obviously done over the years. And yeah, I kind of expected something a little different, but it was all very basic stuff that's hard to manage. And then, so I'd always encourage my buddies, and I still do, if there's a class you want to go take, I'll go with you, because I'm not above learning something from anybody at any level, I feel. And so I've been to a number of classes like that where I just tag along. So I do the same with my buddies and try and encourage them to come with me to this. And that's what I did with your classes for a long time.
So, of course, you didn't need the class. Your buddies did, and you essentially herded them here.
Oh, no, I needed the class. There was no doubt. And I remember pretty clearly the first class was because, in the street background, at least in the group of people I rode around, I wasn't really challenged, so I felt I was at a pretty good place in that background. If you don't surround yourself with higher level people, you never really improve.
This is correct.
You stagnate until you really realize how slow you are in the big picture.
Or it's not necessarily slow, it's just skilled, because with skill and practice and time doing whatever you're doing, you will get better. And when you're surrounding yourself with better people, better riders in this instance, you can kind of pick some stuff up from just being around them. But until it's actually explained, and this is what we try to do, then you can, that's where you kind of are able to improve.
Yeah, there's certainly something to be said for just street seat time. seat time and experience, but you really need somebody to kind of tap you on the shoulder, guide you in a certain way, point some things out. But I came with buddies to several classes and then brought my wife and started, kept coming back. And you had me do a couple of different drills at maybe a harder level or whatever. And then at some point, you just said, I think Heather approached you first, says, hey, you want to come out and help with the classes or something.
And what we noticed is you could tell that you'd gone and practiced the drills. You had took some time to play with some of them and you'd gotten really good. And this is the thing with a lot of our coaches is that, whether they're a young kid that comes along and their job is to pick up bikes and wash them at the end of the class, and then they start learning how to demonstrate and then how to explain what's right or wrong. And it's a lot easier with an adult who you can see a big improvement in. And then, a couple of times, and you probably remember this, it's like for your first couple of quote coaching, you would stand next to me. I would make you stand next to me and I go, what would you tell them? Because I want to verify.
Right, or what did I see there? What do you see?
What are you seeing? And I want to make sure it's not the wrong answer because that can be pretty detrimental. So when and this is the kind of the evolution of it, but you brought up a really good point when you were talking earlier is that with any type of training, you call it a perishable skill, but then you also went back to what I feel is super important and a lot of time gets left out is you do have to go practice this stuff. And some people think just going riding is practicing, and it is to a certain extent. But if you really want to focus on getting better in any one area, that's something you really need to practice. And we try to make our drills fun and kind of entertaining so that if you're out riding with your buddies, you can kind of work on one of these drills. Maybe while you're waiting for everybody to get ready or waiting for everybody to catch up, you can do some of these really basic things.
And I do not make enough time to ride even much anymore because I got other things going on, but I definitely don't make the time to practice like I should, like the figure eights to sand and different things like that I should do. And I watch you hanging out here and you're practicing all the time, which is why you make some of this stuff look pretty easy.
And I don't feel like I practice enough. I mean, right. I lucky I get to practice every time I do a school. I consider that practice, but I enjoy doing this. The reason that we made these drills is it was stuff that I learned to teach myself, to get better when I was racing or just to get more comfortable or to use less energy. And some of them are so easy, yet they're so challenging to do right. We're always talking about, how to feel like you can do it without your hands on the handlebars, to do it without putting energy into the bike, to essentially like float above the bike. All these very idealistic and euphoric feelings that you want to have. Well, I've had them before, and I don't want to lose them. And unless you
you feel them slipping away as Father Time catches up.
Yeah, Father Time.
It's a little hard to stay on top.
I don't know if it's Father Time as much as it is that you're just not doing it all the time.
Yeah.
And when you get really good at something, just your riding at that point is practicing because you catch yourself. You've practiced it to such a high level that while you're just regular riding, you catch yourself at that point then. Doing it properly. So when you do it improperly, the alarm goes off and then it's like, hey, I need to tune myself up a little bit.
And, I don't have that race gene, that wants to push me that far above my comfort zone, or just test. I just don't really have that kind of competitiveness in me, or at least I feel like I don't. I think everybody wants to get a little better at whatever they're doing, particularly if you're on the awkward end of it. But so I didn't come here to go fast or to win races or, get more gold medals. And, I'm just a recreational rider off-road. I go out with some buddies and we go on trips or whatever, travel, camp, whatever. And it's just the teachings here have taken me to another level. And this is the best part of it. I'm not in fantastic shape or any kind of shape. I can ride all day and I'm not beat up because I'm not putting that much energy into the bike.
Right.
And the byproduct of that, which has just kind of been told to me over these years, is they're like, when'd you get fast or something? Because with a lot of the people I ride with that are stagnant or whatever, I've now gotten faster because my comfort level, and control level has gone up a little.
There's a couple things that this kind of plays to is that even when I work with racers, it's like I have to break them down and get them to understand that learning how to, go, slow is fast. Like slow and done properly becomes fast. And we talk about this a lot, that if you're a high level guy and you're at the ragged edge, you can't improve. But if you're a high level guy and you've gotten up there without being at the ragged edge, you still have room to improve. And that even trolls down to when, like where you're at, you just want to feel safer and more comfortable. And by doing that, you're making less mistakes, you're using less energy. Net, you're not stopping as much, you're not having bad experiences, and that leads to being, less tired, and your speed will pick up comfortably, but you don't feel like you're going any faster.
Right. And in this world, the people I'm sitting around with here, I'm not fast, but in other worlds and where I came from, I've seen this progression in my comfort level, which has led to being faster, but I'm safer. I'm much safer at these speeds than I was even going slower before I came here off-road.
Right. Another thing is, so you have extensive training and experience on the street, and then having a dirt bike background from when you were younger and stuff, and then getting off for a while and then coming back to dirt bikes. How would you explain that to someone? I know how I explain it to people that are coming from a street background, and all of a sudden they see all these dirt roads and places they can go off road, and they say, "Hey, well, what do I have to do to learn?" Like, how does that work for you?
Yeah, they're really two different sets of skill sets, and you see that a lot of the even road racers do a lot of dirt training, and then go to the road and then they excel at the road. I don't think people typically go the other way, where they do all their training on the street and then excel in the off-road world. But maybe they do. But it's two different sets of skill sets. It's amazing.
It largely has to do with the amount of traction you have.
Absolutely.
Is the fundamental reason. But it's I always notice that people that come from a street background are really intimidated when they get in the dirt, because the bike is all of a sudden, sliding around. You have less traction and it moves around a little bit. And it's kind of if your bike were doing that on the road, you would feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah, as a street rider, and it happens when your bike, you lose a tire 2 or 3 inches out of the track that it's supposed to be on with traction. That's a pucker thing that immediately, you're going to react to it or whatever. Whereas in the dirt, to stay comfortable through that, which is going on all the time. Yeah. If you can carry that over to the road, now you can see how much more you can push that motorcycle.
Yeah, and it's when it does happen, if you have dirt experience, since this is happening all the time in the dirt, your reaction is probably a lot better than if you don't have any dirt experience and that little bit of slide or slip becomes panic. It's doing it all the time. So riding off-road gives you this sort of natural reaction to, it happens so quick, it has to be instinctive. You cannot have to stop and think about what you need to do at that point. And this is where having some off-road background really comes into play. And then it just, if you're so used to, having a street bike that's heavier, it's more stable, you have a lot of speed momentum coming along. And once you go off-road, you don't have a lot of those characteristics all the time. And, getting that experience and learning that, hey, you can slow down and you're not just going to tip over. The bike can slide around and it's not going to slide out from underneath you.
It still amazes me how much traction you can get off-road in a lot of circumstances, from my experience before. If I looked at a little gravel on the road before, it would be a high-level alert.
Yeah.
And now I look off-road and there's a big whatever going across the sand.
It's all gravel. It's all sand. It's all and
it amazes me what kind of traction you can really get if you can put it to the ground.
Yeah. And so the things that we kind of focus on in this class are balance and traction.
Oh, I thought it was speed and momentum is the key.
No. Yeah, balance and traction, and it's really easy to just not talk about this at all or just throw it out the window, which I think a lot of people do, and they do focus on speed and momentum. They tell you just go a little bit faster, and I always say just go a little bit faster is the answer, then then do that. Just go a little bit faster. Even when you're going really fast and there's a problem, I would not recommend trying to go a little bit faster. It's because at that point the balance kind of runs out and the traction goes away, and those two things are hand in hand, and then bad things start happening. So we try to keep it, like I said, like you talked about earlier, we keep it very, very simple: balance and traction. And then we always say that the motorcycle does four things: it accelerates, it decelerates, you can initiate a turn, and then you can control a turn. And we separate them in those four things because I've found through all of my training and experience that I can explain anything that a motorcycle does using those. Now, I think everybody always goes and watches the super high level guys, whether it's, a Graham Jarvis or, a Eli Tomac doing stuff at motocross tracks and different high level stuff. And they go, well, what he's doing? Well, he's the best in the world, and he's blending and blurring the lines of where these things happen. We're not there yet. We still need to do those things individually and break them down into their essence and get really good at doing each thing. So it becomes instinctive, and then you can worry about trying to do the next thing. Because when somebody says, well, I want to, wheel off and do a pivot turn around, and around this tree stump. And it's like, okay, so what are we going to work on? And well, there's balance and traction, two primary things. And then it's like, well, if you want the front wheel to come up, that's an acceleration. And then you have to initiate a turn. Of course, now your front tire should be in the air, but how do you get your front tire in the air before we even worry about this? That's a burst of power timed with well-controlled clutch use. And you start thinking about it, and there's some rear brake involved in all of this, and that's timing and coordination, time and coordination. That's where the practice comes in.
So you mentioned earlier we got pretty diverse. I mean, the only reason I'm here, it's not for you or Heather or anything.
Comedic.
No,
relief.
No, yeah. Yeah, just to, trip you up when I can. It's very gratifying to see people pick up on something and a light bulb go off, people to, make themselves a better rider.
We call it that aha moment.
Yeah.
And you see it, like, and generally, in our classes, our in-person classes out here in Pahrump, Nevada, which we run in the cooler months of the year, and you watch the students, and sometimes, like, the minute they hit the dirt, they're petrified, or they're a good rider and they think they're doing it right, and you just you see them the minute they go in the dirt, you see this body position change, or an improper body position, and these are
the other thing that you guys have created, and it's good, is I'm confident because I test it, we talk about it during the classes and everything. Our advice is very consistent across the board. There's nobody just throwing something weird in there. If Jimmy looks at you and says the body position's out or whatever, and Jim was across the way, or Matt or Heather or I, Jimmy Tyler, anybody, Logan, way across the way, and somebody separately asks them, they'd go, yeah, the body position's out, or the guy's wrist is down. I mean, every now and then we spot different things, but we're really consistent. And that's not always the case when you go to some of these schools. Sometimes it's just a free-for-all or a marketing thing, and you just get what you get. I really like that. And the other thing I really like about your class is you're not afraid to let it evolve. It's not like you got a cookie cutter thing and you don't evolve some of the drills or the way we present them to people. And it changes a lot.
Yeah, we're constantly learning from our students, and hopefully in a few episodes I'm going to have one of my coaches who started with us literally 15, 17 years ago, who is for the class we're having this week, and he's going to come back in and observe the class this weekend. He brought his girlfriend to take the class. He's smart. You don't want to try to teach your own girlfriend. That'd be like me teaching my wife how to ride, which she knew how to ride pretty well before I got a hold of her. I just made it worse for a while. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to do an episode with him to talk about how the school has evolved, because he's going to be blown away by how much
you're not even going to let him talk to students this weekend.
No,
he's changed so much.
Yeah, he used to be one of our coaches,
and the principles haven't changed, I don't think, but maybe the way some of the drills are done. And then I want to know where time went, because it seems like we used to have so much time to kind of ride, into lunch, out to lunch, and around between different drills. We had a lot of, and all that time's just gone because we got so much material you can't get through it all.
We can barely get through all of our drills in a day. We don't. We literally have drills in reserve, and each class kind of has its own dynamic, depending on, the skill level of where people want to improve or kind of different techniques they really focus on. We can kind of tailor the school to adjust to those needs. But it's been 20 long years of learning that, and our students kind of teach us this. And I enjoy getting a really good tough question from a student when they come and they say, hey, and I beg you to do this with whoever you're learning to ride from. When they tell you to do something, whatever it is, ask them why. And this is what we do. This is a lot of times when I say, hey, what are they doing? And you'll explain it. Like, you see a lot of times the wrists are down or they're not gripping or re-gripping, or they're trying to grab the bike with their knees and they're squatting, or all different kinds of things. Say, what's wrong? You identify it. How do you fix it? We have a couple of solutions, and then I always will go, why would you do that? And I want the answer, because if a student asks you this is something that you should be able to do. Like, I don't know, it's just because. Like, well, that's the way I do it.
Yeah, if we don't know, we send them to somebody else. If you just don't have can't figure it out, you have them try somebody else. We're all diverse. People learn differently just from hearing it from somebody different.
This is definitely true.
The Georges and the Jims and stuff, we're kind of the mortals of this world. You've done your stuff at a super high level, and we're just kind of riders and old guys and short-legged guys. And
a lot of times people see me, they see me do something and they think they're doing it exactly the same. And when I'm demonstrating, I try to demonstrate wrong, and we call it goon riding, or just doing something. I show the don'ts, and people laugh, and it's kind of funny, but it's
what they're doing.
It's what they're doing, and they don't realize it and we know, the only reason I know this is from watching it for so long, and it's as hard for me to do that. I literally have to practice doing it the wrong thing, because every instinct in my body, it's an alarm going off. It's like, don't do this bad. It's a lot of times because bad things can happen, and I know how to catch it when it does. But that's where you come in. You always like, hey,
I'm
Jimmy,
always going. Yeah.
Hey, why don't you do that a little bit faster? Why don't you?
Yeah, instead of starting out right, why don't you crank the wheel that way, lean the bike away from it, now rip off and go. And it's just, and he usually does it to some degree.
I will try it because I want to see. I'll try it at a safe level to see how the bike reacts, how I react, what the proper thing is. For a learning experience, I want to. I want to be able to teach better. I think, I want to be able to explain it, and you guys are the same way. I see you guys practicing some of this stuff sometimes, because you're like, we watch a student like do something and like, hey, did you see that? And it's like, no. And like, try it, and half of it is to the point where we sometimes try these things that are completely wrong, and we want to feel what it feels like, because how can you actually do that without feeling like you're going to really wreck or do something bad? That sensation where
I don't need to try that. I've spent most of my dirt riding doing it wrong. So,
but you didn't know.
Yeah,
a lot of times you didn't know until you were told. It felt comfortable, but once you do it the right way, and that's what they have this aha moment. All of a sudden, you feel like you can loosen up on the bike. You can relax on the handlebars. You respect what the throttle can do, how well the brakes can work, all the little things. So it's, acceleration, deceleration, initiating the turn, which is really how you control the bike 90% of the times. And then that rare, awkward time when you get to really purely control a turn, which you do all the time on road, but it's a rare moment off road that you get this. But it sure is nice to do this and have that aha moment.
But I encourage, if you're going to come, I know these classes, none of these classes are just cheap. If they're cheap, then you better really look at what you're going to get out of it. We see advertisements and guys running these clinics and everything, and there's no way they're insured. There's no way they got permits. But anyway, in the long run, there's no better bang for your buck than getting some proper training at whatever level. And I encourage you to come out, bring a couple of buddies, so you got somebody there that can remember some of these, and you can watch each other and tell when you're doing things wrong and maybe adjust each other, and then maybe plan to ride the desert for a few days afterwards. Come out here a day or two early, ride around, get comfortable on your bike, come to the class for a couple of days, and then go out, ride, got Death Valley on the porch out here, and do that. What you don't want to do necessarily is come out here, go to the class, go back to your busy life, and not ride for a year or 6 months or whatever. I mean, that's okay. We'll gladly take you in and you'll learn things, but
it does require a little bit of practice, and the practice, you get like an injection here, and then well, shortly after that, if with a little bit of practice, it'll start kind of sticking. It really starts working. And when you do, you can come out here and do our classes, but pretty soon we are going to have our entire curriculum up online in online class. Currently, we have a beginner rider class, and this is for very novice riders. We like to say if you've never touched a motorcycle before, or the touching of a motorcycle hasn't been that productive, this is a great way to learn and get yourself started on the right foot, the balanced right foot or the balanced left foot, because we always talk about one foot on the ground. And with every episode, we like to throw in a little bit of a nugget. And I think the nugget I was thinking about giving for this one was when one of the like we keep talking about the practice and wanting to get better with all of our drills. We kind of incorporate some sort of a balance thing into it. And a lot of times we don't really talk about that. We explain that they all have them in there, but we talk about a balance thing. But if you find yourself wanting to go out and put the rudders out, both feet out when you stop, and we're really particular about this because we feel like it's a bad habit. And you start watching people they've kind of begun to crash. They amplify it by taking their feet off the foot pegs. And when you take your feet off the foot pegs, you've lost most of the control of the motorcycle. So when you're riding, the tip you want to do is focus on never both feet off the foot pegs. You can, and don't give me I watch the best riders in the world do this. They're doing something completely different. I'm just talking about you everyday riding. Stop taking both feet off the foot pegs at any time, even just when you come to a stationary stop, because at that point, what that's telling somebody who's an experienced coach watching you is you don't know which direction the bike is leaning. And you don't even realize this until you start trying to pay attention to it. You have to, we call it pick a side. You have to understand which side is which, and whether you're riding in motion or you're coming to a stop. This is one of those techniques.
Well, and I see the opposite too, where I think as soon as the bike starts to roll, you should pick up your feet and put them on your controls, i.e. foot pegs, brake, shifter, when you start to move. And then as you're stopping, you put down a foot when you need to. You don't put them out there and flail them around. Now you're just giving up probably your back brake, and things like that. The opportunities to really move your foot around and everything else. So when the motorcycle's moving, put your feet up there.
Really hard to stand up with only one foot on the foot pegs.
Yeah.
So, and I know George really takes this serious because your legs are all of about 12 inches long.
Yeah. No, I think it's like 27. I have a real short inseam. That's the other thing. I used to think I needed to lower my bikes, but now I just ride stock height bikes, sprung for my weight. They're pretty high. It's a little more work getting on, but if it's in balance, it's nothing. And I just don't put my feet down that often.
Yep, that's right. And so with that, we are going to sign off. Hopefully we'll see you out here at one of our classes or in one of our online classes as we get them out and rolling. And we will see you out in the trail. So cheers.
Thanks.